If you want to be more effective in your work and in your life, and you'd like to have more confidence that you're meeting your intentions, this is where it begins. Welcome to Do Busy Right, helping you organize your information and manage your attention so that they work for you, not against you. We educate you and encourage you by discussing ways to be more effective, not more exhausted. Let's do busy right. Hi there. Today, I want to talk about how to say no. And when I'm talking about saying no, what I mean is the strategic no. My goal is to equip you with understanding and practical tactics to master this skill. And it is a crucial skill. And it's going to help you transform how you manage your most valuable asset. And that is, of course, your attention. So the value of this topic for you is really as big as any that I've known. And the reason that's true is because this is about you reclaiming your potential, your productive ability, your own attention. Now, that's going to have some positive effects in the short term. It's going to reduce the sense of overwhelm. It's going to give you a sense of peace and calmness and clarity, which is great. Most people really have never experienced it, but it's a wonderful feeling when you get it. And the other part is the confidence that you'll get from intentionally directing your own life and your own work to the largest degree you can. Part of the stress that we feel is we feel like we're being pulled back and forth around by other people, and we're doing things that they want us to do, and we fail to do the things that we want to do. And because of that, it feels like we're out of control. And quite frankly, that's an accurate feeling. We are out of control. We're letting other people control our agenda. Now, there are some people who have a certain level of rights over your time and attention. We have special names for them. We call them bosses, spouses, parents, children. Okay? And these are areas in your life where people do have a claim on your attention. But other kinds of people, like coworkers, maybe, people who want you to engage with their project outside of work, maybe, certain maintenance tasks that you would prefer to not do, maybe. So these are areas where you might feel that it's demanded that you do something. And one of the things we're going to do here today is we're going to look pretty closely at that sense of demand. All right, so let's back up. The fundamental problem of task and attention management stems from one simple truth. And that truth is that your attention is always somewhere. Okay, it never truly shuts off. And in this sense, it's like a flashlight that's always on, but not always directed. So what happens then is we can't not pay attention when our attention is claimed. We can't push the pause button, right? There's just the one flashlight. Okay. And if the flashlight moves from something you care about to something that you don't care about for any recognizable period of time, then when you try to move it back, it takes you a minute to find the right place to put it and to clearly, again, have that set of events or that scope within the flashlight, have it brought into your mind. Okay. So that's kind of the fundamental problem. Okay. Now, when we look at this and then we think about, okay, well, your knowledge work, in the knowledge work world, your attention is your primary productive asset. Okay. So when it gets pulled away, the flashlight gets pulled away, it loses track of where it was. and it forgets the scene that was there because it's looking at the new scene. Okay. Now, then when you try and pull it back to where it was, you've got to remember where it was and the general direction that you were looking. B, you've got to hone that flashlight in on a specific part of the scene so you can capture the appropriate level of detail and bring the situation into your mind. And then thirdly, there is a quite long amount of time that it can take to pull that in, okay, depending on the complexity of the problem you were trying to solve and the state that you left it in when your attention got pulled away. Okay, so that's a challenge. Now, the other piece is it's not a stretch to say that all of the information you receive has either consumed some of your attention just by receiving it, or in order to get value out of it, it's going to have to consume your attention at a later date. So if we stretch our definition of a task out into anything that consumes your attention for a non-zero amount of time, then all of these claims on our attention mean that we've got a very, very large number of things that we could be doing at any one point. Okay. It's kind of like the stack of books on your nightstand that you keep meaning to get to and read. And what I mean by that is more books get added maybe than get taken away. And you know it's there and you think, ooh, I really want to read this next book. And you get it on there, you put it on the pile. Or you get it over onto your Kindle where it doesn't bother you visually near as much. But then they still don't get read. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking of a task. Because if you think of it that way, then these tasks that we're collecting up all represent a slice of our attention. And so as we've got these things out there, we've got to recognize that our attention can only be in one place at one time. So in this view of a task, we can only do one task at a time. Our attention's on one thing at a time. Well, that means that all those other things that you've collected that need your attention, that you want to give attention to, have to be postponed. And your brain knows this. So your brain's sensitive to the fact that there's this unfinished work that's out there and it wants to get going on. But the worst of all is a task that your brain sees as being interrupted in mid-flight. So this is the interruption problem. You're doing something and your brain's into it and you get interrupted and your brain recognizes the interruption in the incomplete task. Okay. And it bothers you. Your brain reminds you that you left that incomplete. Your brain doesn't like this. Okay. There's a term called salience of an idea. And an incomplete task has high salience for our brains. Okay. So interruption, lots of things to do at one time, but all these things mean that you need to be very good at postponing. Okay. And postponing means managing the things that you're not doing right now. Whether you intend to do them or not later is something of a secondary issue, but you got to keep track of them. Okay. And then later, when you become aware of them again, then you can decide whether or not you want to do them. Okay. Now, if you have a challenge of managing the things that you're not doing, one of the easiest ways to attack that challenge is to have fewer things in the queue that you're not doing, which brings us back to this notion of saying no. Okay. It's easy to say, well, yeah, I'll say yes to it and then I'll find a way to weasel out of it later. But that's not good hygiene for your brain. Your brain reacts poorly to that. Your brain feels guilty about that. Okay. And you may not sense it as guilt, but your brain is aware of it and that salience is there. Okay. So take care of your brain. figure out how to get good at postponing tasks. And one of the best way to get good at postponing tasks is to have fewer tasks to postpone. And the best way to have fewer tasks to postpone is to learn how to say no. All right. Now, there's huge challenges associated with saying no. I get it. Okay. We're not people who like to say no. By and large, human beings want to be helpful. Okay. We want to be people pleasers. We want to say yes. We want to help. All of those things. We want to participate so that we can be admired for our contribution and our talents. All of these things are important to us. Okay. So it's a challenge. And almost everybody says of themselves, and they may just be giving it lip service, fair enough, but almost everybody will say of themselves, well, I'm just a people pleaser. Okay. Now, there might be a lot of reasons for that, but this reveals this sense that their time is not their own. Now, if by being a people pleaser means that you take care of your kids when they need taken care of, well, that's a different situation altogether. But most people say it and it's like, well, I wish I wasn't a people pleaser. And they mean peers and external things. Okay. But what it reveals is that their time is not their own. Okay. They got too many claims on their attention. So that notion means that if we're people pleasers, we not only have our own tasks, but also tasks for other people, meeting their needs or helping their agenda move along. Okay. And this leads to a larger and larger pile of things to do because people will not stop asking you on their own. People are inveterate askers of things. So the only person that's going to manage this for you is you. And that's the default tendency. Okay. We don't want to disappoint other people, and I get it. I like to say yes too. But what I try to keep in mind, and this may be a good place for you to sit for a little while, is that every time you say yes to something, you're inherently saying no to one of the things in this huge backlog that you've got. Okay. And a way to cement that in your mind, right, is to notice that the word decide has a root, that CIDE, decide. Well, that's from the same etymology as our killing words. Okay. Homicide. Okay. Suicide. And that really cements the notion for me that when I decide, I'm killing off an alternate path, literally killing it off. Okay. So that's the same thing. When you say yes, you are deciding to say no to something else. So maybe that'll help this stick in your mind and really keep you motivated for it to be the front of your consciousness as you're dealing with these situations. So when we look at this saying no, we want to learn how to do it. We want to learn how to do it tactfully and well and properly. And then over time, you can condition your brain to get comfortable with the idea rather than just living in perpetual fear of it, because that's one of the problems. Okay. We wind up being people pleasers because the rewards and penalties of pleasing other people are really uncertain. And so we're really playing it safe. When in fact, sometimes we should push the boundaries a little bit and say no. Okay. We do it out of fear, right? So as we condition our brain to get more confident in these areas, then we'll be more comfortable saying no. But you got to bootstrap it. You got to start it somewhere. You can't wait until your brain feels comfortable to start doing it. Okay. So in the larger sweep of this whole thing, right, we need to consider our attention as something that has a limit. And I think a lot of people don't do this. I think many people believe that their attention is something like infinite. Okay. Now, true, your attention doesn't exactly correspond to time in the same way other processes do. Okay, it takes a rock, X number of seconds to fall from the tower. It doesn't matter how many people focus on it, right? But sometimes your attention is different than that. That said, it's still limited, and when you look at a limited resource, if you only had $4,000 left in your life, you'd be extremely careful about how it's used. Well, and the same thing really applies to your attention. Okay. And through your attention to your time. And I was recently made aware of the fact from a book title that the human lifespan really only comprises 4,000 weeks. 4,000 weeks. And so when we let our attention get frittered away, then we're actually losing some of those 4,000 weeks of a limited resource. Okay, so here we go with tactics. There are two primary tactics. Okay, so one is the strategic no in real time. Okay, and what that means is, can you say no when somebody asks you to do something? And now, again, I acknowledge that there are certain people in your life who you can't say no to. Okay, or you have to be very selective about when you say no. But that number is fairly small when you get right down to it for most of us. Okay? And it's not those people that are careless with our time. Okay. So when we look at this saying no in real time, the primary issue is for us to be able to say no quickly, directly, and confidently. Now, that does not mean that we can't be nice about it. It doesn't mean that we have to be mean to people about it. Okay. But the primary way to support your brain in saying no is to be confident. And that confidence is, I'm confident that my attention is exactly where it needs to be. I'm confident right now in this moment that I'm putting my attention on the highest priority item in my knowledge. Okay. I'm putting my attention to its highest priority use right now. And oh, by the way, I can also tell you the next 3 to 4 to 5 highest priority issues that are going to consume my attention for the rest of the day and perhaps into tomorrow. I can get to it quickly, and if you'd like, we can talk about it. That's going to come important when we talk about your boss. So when we have that confidence, when we say, wait a minute, I'm confident that I'm paying attention to the highest priority thing I know about or of, then when somebody interrupts me or asks me to do something different, okay, I can assess their response relative to the one thing I'm doing now. I can assess what they want me to do relative to the one thing I'm doing now. And then I can say, I can't engage with that now. Okay. So it's very helpful. Now, most of us would say we have a list, but I would suggest to you that the list is incomplete, improperly stored, and thus inaccurate. Okay. Now, what I mean by that is because you either store your list in your skull, and you know my opinion of the ability of your brain to remember things precisely, or it's on a list or in a stack somewhere, and there's too many items on that list and in that stack. Okay. So because of this, when somebody asks you to do something and you evaluate the priority of that, your brain has to fairly quickly get through the list of other candidates for your attention, right? And so when it's trying to do that, it has to compare this new thing to all the other things on your list. And if there's 30 things, that comparison takes a while and it's inaccurate. Okay. Your brain is very poor at a task like comparing one to many, right? One at a time. It's very poor at that. And it gets distracted. Okay. So that's the one thing, right? If you got this mental list. If you got a list on paper, the problem is those are probably not in priority order. Right. So if we have a solid list, then we can be confident when we say, oh no, I'm doing the highest priority thing. And they go, well, can you do mine next? And you go, well, next, I've got my next highest priority thing. And you can go as far down the list as you need to go. Okay. And again, this tactic will come in handy when we talk later about your boss. So this comparison that we have to make is algorithmically slow. Okay. That means in computer terminology, a strategy to sort a list by comparing one to all is there are better strategies. Okay. So as we look at this, that's one of the problems with inaccurate mental lists. So what do we want? The solution here is a written, prioritized, and exhaustive list. Okay. Well, that's great. And I agree. To effectively compare and make decisions, you need a complete list of all your potential tasks kept in priority order at all times. Because you don't know when the interruption is going to come, right? So if you have your to-do list on a legal pad in pen, look down at it. Can you compare the new ask to all those things on that list fairly quickly? Okay. Well, I can't, because the proper strategy for this is you can compare one to all under two circumstances. It's more efficient under two circumstances. One is that list is in some order that makes sense for the new thing. Okay. In this case, priority. It's in order. Okay. And you're looking at the priority of the new thing relative to all those priorities. Okay. Why is that more efficient? Because that means you can stop comparing when you, right? Now, this allows for these quick comparisons because you just float it down and you plug it in wherever it's not higher than the one you're looking at. Okay. Or it becomes higher than the one you're looking at. You get it. And so this is a fairly quick comparison. Okay. Particularly if somebody's standing there tapping their toe at you. Can you do this now? No, I'm doing the thing now. So it's going to be at least an hour before I can get to your thing. Can I wait that long? No, I can't. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Off you go. The problem with this list is there in theory, there's a bazillion things on it, right? We already talked about that. There's a bazillion things you could be doing. Okay. Therefore, paper won't work. You can't keep a bazillion things on paper. Okay. You certainly can't keep them in your head. Right. So the only thing that will work when we're talking about the number of things we're talking about trying to track, the only thing that will work is a computer. Okay. And even then, not just any old system will do. And not only do the tools have to be there in place, but there is as yet no system that can sort your priority on your behalf. Only within a certain context can some other people sort it on your behalf. So if you punch clock for a living, your boss can tell you what to do during the 8 hours that you're on shift. You're not supposed to be thinking about other things. Right? If you're not punching a clock, then there is nobody to tell you. Okay, you have to do it on your own. You still have a boss, But at that level, bosses tend to make more suggestions and things. It's still handy to have a boss for this. Don't get me wrong, because you can always go to the boss and say, hey, boss, I got 3 things that all seem to be the same priority level. Why don't you help me sort them out? Okay, perfect. Anyway, so back to this list, right? So you got to have the tooling, but you also got to have the intent to keep it organized. Because a list turns into a pile very quickly through neglect, just like a garden turns into a weed farm pretty quickly through neglect. Okay, so you got to have the tools, and you got to have the intent, and you got to have the process that helps you do it. Now, back to this written, prioritized, and exhaustive list. If you've got one and can keep it, okay, now we can deal with the powerful people in our lives. Okay, these are the people who have a legitimate claim on your time: your boss, your spouse, your kids, your parents. And under those circumstances, they actually care about you more than you might think because of that relationship. Your boss probably cares about how you use your time more than you give him or her credit for. And so then what happens is you show them your list. Okay. For your boss, you say, okay, well, here's the list, right? I'm trying to fit this in somewhere, but here's the things. So, boss, you look at the priorities that I've assigned these things, and if they're in the right order, okay, say the top 10, and then we'll take this new thing that you want me to do and we'll slide it in there and see where it makes the most sense. And then I'll work on it. Easy peasy. And so you're not saying no, you're just saying, based on what I understand right now, that's not a wise thing to work on. Okay. And that helps with these powerful people. You show your spouse, and we do this sort of automatically anyway. I mean, if one of the kids calls up and says, hey, Dad, can you take me to the soccer game tonight? I go, well, I have another appointment. And usually that's a clearly understood signal that I have to track down my own priorities, and thus would struggle to be able to put attention on their thing. Okay. So that's the deal. So it's very powerful to have this written, prioritized, and exhaustive list. Now, between you and me and the microphone, is it going to be truly exhaustive? No, it's not. But it's going to be close. You're going to be able to run things down a 30 or 40 item list until the people that are trying to hand you this item get frustrated with you, realize it ain't going to get done this week, and grab it and try to go make it somebody else's problem. And then you can move on. Okay. Now, again, I'm not being a jerk here. I don't want to be mean to people. I don't want to be disrespectful to people. And if people have a claim on my time, then they do. But I think a lot more people assume that they have a claim on my time than actually have a claim. Okay. So that's tactic one. Okay. In real time, the list gets you where you need to be. Okay. Now, tactic two, on the strategic no. This is clarifying shared expectations and defining roles. Okay. So the foundational component here is to establish a thorough, shared, agreed upon set of expectations about the roles that you play in each other's lives with these powerful people. Okay. Let's sit down and have a conversation about it. Now, that conversation is not a one and done conversation. Okay. But we can nuance it by having little snippets of the conversation a lot, little pieces here and there. Okay. So, what are your expectations for me here? Let's just clear that up. What are my expectations here? That can be a very powerful conversation to launch. Okay. Because people have this intrinsic sense of fairness, this intrinsic sense of, well, I see where Larry's helping me out, so I need to help him out just right back. Okay. And so people will work with you on that. So When we talk about establishing the shared set of expectations, what we mean is to clarify the role content. So you acknowledge that you have a role. I acknowledge that I have an employee role. I acknowledge that my role is you're the boss and I'm the employee. I acknowledge that my role is normally to do what you say. And I appreciate your help in my world. Now that we've said that, and this general understanding of what the role is, can we dig down into some specifics? Okay, so that's this content of the role. Just like if you were hiring on a new job, you would say something to somebody about, well, what's the expectation of presence in the office? What's the expectation of, say, dress code? Okay, so that's this managing expectations, and we're all pretty good at it. Now, could we use some practice? Sure, we could, but we're all pretty good at it. We just need to do it. Okay. So as we manage these expectations, all right, then the other person can begin to recognize that you won't fulfill a certain part of their need, and that's okay. And then they can seek to get that filled elsewhere. And that's really important. Okay, so once you define it as outside of your role, and that's sometimes a negotiation, sometimes you have to acknowledge that you didn't think it was and now you believe it is, and sometimes your boss will do the same thing. And you'll get straight on this, and you'll be able to make some trade-offs and a negotiated settlement on what this thing looks like in your. Okay? But then what happens is once the other person recognizes that that's not part of your role with them, then they can go get that need filled elsewhere, okay? Which is the primary problem. People get upset when they think that you'll do something for them and then you won't. Now, they're happy to have that expectation corrected, but right in the moment, they ain't real happy about it because that's what happens. Oh, what do you mean you can't, help me with the report? You said you would. Now I got to go find somebody else to help me with the report, and I'm going to look like a jerk asking somebody at the last minute. Okay, so that's what happened, right? So you can give them time to adjust. You can even negotiate it. You can say, hey, I don't see that as being part of my role in the long term. How can we have a plan where I can exit this responsibility and you can give it to somebody else? Okay. It's a very mature and grown up work conversation to have, right? But the key is to help the other person avoid disappointment, because the worst thing is for somebody to think they can rely on you and then find out at or near the last minute that they can't. Okay. Therefore, it's your responsibility to say your no as early as possible. A last minute no is a bad deal for everybody. Okay. You don't want to say it and they don't want to hear it. So, the further away, the further upstream we can move that conversation, the better off we are. So when we're looking at this conversation, at this process, it's all about establishing and declaring boundaries. And this is a word that gets thrown around a lot in therapy, is boundaries. And so it sounds, I don't know how it sounds. It comes off as a little, I don't know, therapeutic or whatever it is. And that's fine. Okay. And in part, the reason that it sounds weird is because it often is associated with self-protection from harm. It's often associated with, well, I'm going to set a boundary so that that person can't hurt me. Where in this particular case, we're setting a boundary so that that person knows they can't expect to get my attention in this area. So that's much, much easier. Okay. So when we start practicing about our attention, okay, then what we're protecting really is the very essence of our agency. If you cannot define where your attention goes, then you have no free will. You can't enact free will without having some control over your attention. That's when people talk about being enraptured. Okay, what they mean is their attention is totally captivated by the object of their rapturous desire and they can't think of anything else. Okay, so just as a metaphor, right, it begins to make sense. So that's what the setting boundaries is. It's attentional boundaries, intentional, attentional boundaries. Okay, so you set them with intention and then you protect your agency. You protect your ability to do the things in the world that you need to do and that only you can do. Okay. Now, as we're doing this, we want to be very clear about the scope that we're addressing. Okay. One of the things that I just continually chuckle about is people won't unsubscribe from emails. I don't know what I mean, I've heard some odd things. I've heard, well, I'm not going to unsubscribe from it because then they'll know it's an email address. Well, they don't really care. Okay. And they're not going to double down if you do the unsubscribe, most of them. And so that I don't know, it's kind of silly if you look at it that way, right? Like, ooh, I better not answer the phone because then they'll know somebody's home. Well, if they think nobody's home, they're just going to call back anyway. So that's right. So anyway, the point is when we go to email, if we get a stream of emails that we don't want to get, then what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to keep deleting emails from now until doomsday? No, we're supposed to unsubscribe, right? That's a permanent request to, hey, stop bothering me, right? And it works 9 times out of 10 easily, maybe more often, right? So when we have a request and we think about roles and boundaries, then what we're doing is we're actually unsubscribing from that kind of request. We're saying generically, hey, please don't bring this kind of thing to my attention in the future. Okay. And that's much more powerful than just saying no all the time. Right. So think about that unsubscribe as we're clarifying our roles and setting boundaries. I'm unsubscribing from future requests in the same area. Now, as a practical matter, and it's good here in this second part, because the second part is a broader, longer term, less urgent use of the word no. And what we can do here is we can help brainstorm alternatives. When we help somebody understand that we're not going to be responsible for this kind of help that they need, maybe we can spend a little time helping them figure out where to find the help that they need, or maybe even how they could do it themselves. And we do this pretty naturally because somebody says, hey, come and show me the blah, blah, blah. I say, well, this is not really my role, so I can show you how to do it and you can do it for yourself. Is that a medium point? Is that a negotiated settlement that we can both feel good about? Okay, and then you set up a time to do that. You sit down with the other person and you show them how to do it, and then your responsibility is absolved. You still got to set a boundary, but you're moving in the right direction here. So offering those alternatives. If they're coming to you for something, then there's a pretty good probability that you know more about how they can find that something than they know about how they can find that something. Okay. Well, I can't do that for you, but I happen to know this situation over here that may help you get it done. That kind of thing. So that's the strategic no. There's the short-term immediate strategic no, and there's the longer-term boundary setting, role definition kind of no. All right. So what we've covered here, when we're looking at this kind of thing, I want you to know that I'm all about supporting your attentional boundaries. That's what Attention Compass is all about. The main purpose of Attention Compass is to be this all-encompassing list that stays in priority order of everything you need to do. That's its goal. And so as such, part of it is a tool where this list lives. Okay, it's implemented in a place on your computer. And the other part is the workflows that help you maintain it in priority order. So it's a good list. It's not some random list off the top of your head. Okay. And so that's where attention compass fits in here. But my whole practice, my whole area of help for people is to help them figure out how to recover and reclaim their attention. And you've heard a lot of that in the podcast. So if that's something you're interested in looking into, maybe I can help you. Give me a shout via email. You can reach me at larry@dobusywright.com. I'm not hard to find. I'm on LinkedIn, Larry Tribble. I'm not hard to find. One of the benefits of having a fairly unique name, right? So I'm not hard to find at all. So love to, I'd be honored really for you to reach out and let's talk about where you are and maybe some resources that could help you get to where you want to be. So your attention is your productive asset and it's always on. And everything that comes into our world, every piece of information that comes into our world is at least a potential use of attention either now or in the future. Okay. And that means it'll suck up our attention. Okay. How much of it is an open question, but it'll get some. Right. So given the quasi infinite number of things that you could be doing at any one time versus the very small number that you can meaningfully engage with at any given time. So mastering the art of no, it's not just a convenience. It's an absolute necessity for effective task and attention management. No, and not yet. Okay. No means it didn't get on my list to begin with, and not yet means I ain't handling it till next Tuesday. Okay. Now, we've explored in this time together, we've explored two powerful tactics to build your confidence and your capability in saying no effectively. First, cultivate, maintain, and have at your fingertips a complete, consistently prioritized list of your commitments. So this enables you, your executive function, you yourself, your agency, to quickly and accurately compare new requests against your highest priorities. And if you recognize where that fits on your priority list, then that gives you a chance to say no or not yet. And they're the same things, right? If you will just tell somebody how low their item is on your priority list, and thus when it might happen, they'll leave you alone. They're not there because they want you to do something next month. Okay, they're there because they want you to do something now. So now the second component, so the first is this big list. Okay, and we talked about the properties of the list. It's exhaustive, it's always in priority order, and it's right there where you can get to it when you need to. Okay. The second set of tactics is to, from time to time, engage in clear, candid conversations about roles and expectations with the important people in your life. So this proactive boundary setting clarifies what you will and won't take responsibility for. And that allows you to either subscribe to or unsubscribe from certain areas of request. And if you unsubscribe, not only do they stop bothering you, but they also seek to get that need fulfilled elsewhere, and you can probably help them with that. Okay, just having the conversation. So remember, the goal is not just to decline an unwanted ask in the moment. The goal is to try to unsubscribe from that set of things entirely. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But there's always room for negotiation here. Okay? You have agency in these situations. And it's far better to disappoint somebody now once by clearly saying no and unsubscribing and setting boundaries than it is to let them down repeatedly by implicitly agreeing and failing to deliver. It's far, far better. I tell people all the time, I'd rather know I have a hole in my organization or on my team than I can fill it versus denial. Okay. So if you can't do it or won't do it or whatever that is, let's have a conversation about it. Please tell me. And then we can work together towards a solution. Now, on the upside, with the people that you care about in the world, this clarity fosters trust and it allows others to plan effectively. And that helps them prevent situations where they're in a bind and they get frustrated and angry about hearing no. So the best thing you can do is take the time and use your attention and practice these techniques. Prepare for them, get ready for them, but don't wait until some point in the mystical future when everything's lined up before you start doing it. You have to learn how to do it. And remember, don't just delete, don't just delay, unsubscribe. Your attention, your productive asset, and the peace of mind that goes with it will thank you for it in the future. I'll leave it there for now. This is Larry Tribble, Ph.D. Thanks for taking some time to improve your task and information management on the Do Busy Right podcast. The show is dedicated to helping you think about how to get better at working. And we do this by improving your attention and your focus. I believe that your work is not just about your job, but about all the tasks that you do to turn yourself, your environment, and your relationships into what you want them to be. What we're really talking about here is the underpinnings of becoming who you want to be. The primary way I help people is through coaching the Attention Compass process. Attention Compass is 4 workflows and a tool set that support our information, task, and attention management. I help people with big goals to build habits that put them in a position to achieve. We do this by eliminating wasted time and wasted attention. If you'd like to know more, you can find me on LinkedIn or go to dobusyright.com for more information. Have a good week, more effective and less exhausted. Do Busy Right.